This is a global monetary asset. If it's not going to zero, it's going to a, and that's where we find ourselves today. I think Bitcoin soared up, then it crashed on the Chinese.
Yeah, the China ban.
First the China ban, and then there was the environmental ESG FUD.
Right, Elon discovered that it used electricity all of a sudden.
Yeah, we fought our way through that, and then it surged back up again, and then we went into the crypto winter, and we fell from 66,000 to 16,000, and so that 80% drawdown. I think that was, the big test, because it shook out the tourists, and it also shook out everyone that didn't know how to manage a capital structure. So, the poorly capitalized, entities that had lots of credit risk and had unhealthy leverage got taken out. And there was a lot of forced liquidation and panic selling of Bitcoin that took us to the 66,000. And you just had to grit your teeth and get through that. And I would say, that was sort of the low point, right around the point where Silvergate Bank failed, or it was
like Q1 2023.
Yeah, from FTX to Silvergate Bank. And it was also sad. I mean, a lot of poorly run companies failed because they were poorly run. But then there were a lot of good companies. I thought, Signature, Silvergate were forced out of business to no fault of their own. They just, they were caught in choke point 2.0, and that was somewhere between tragic and distasteful.
Let's kick things off with Bitcoin's incredible recovery. The approval of ETFs and the halving event created a perfect storm. This move tightened Bitcoin's supply and gave it more legitimacy as an asset. This helped build confidence and gave the market serious momentum.
I think we crawled out of the valley of the crypto winter, and we crawled, recovered back into the 30s or the 40s, and then I think we got into 2024, and I think in 2024, we started with some cautious optimism, Bitcoin grinding up, a lot of questions about the rest of the digital assets economy, but Bitcoin, recovering from the bottom on its own without help from anybody. And then we got the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETFs, and then we had the halving, and the consequences of the halving were a number of things. One, there was a big secular rotation of capital from a bunch of Bitcoin miners to MicroStrategy. The options market in Bitcoin moved from the miners to MicroStrategy. So all of a sudden, MicroStrategy emerged as a leading volatility, liquidity trade in the crypto ecosystem. And we became aware of that. And I think the second thing is 450 Bitcoin a day, which is $45 million a day of selling, got taken out of the market. And so the supply tightened, and the natural supply tightened. The market matured. The ETFs legitimized.
Next, let's talk politics. Bitcoin found an unlikely ally when Donald Trump embraced it. Michael Saylor put it this way: Trump embraced Bitcoin, and the crypto community embraced Trump. This connection pushed Bitcoin to the mainstream, causing some big market shifts.
The summer where the Trump campaign, first of all, caught a huge amount of electricity in the greater political economy. And then Trump embraced Bitcoin and embraced crypto, and the crypto community and the Bitcoin community embraced Trump. That took us into the November 5th elections. And
MicroStrategy made headlines with their groundbreaking $21 billion plan. Said described it as a crypto reactor fueled by Bitcoin. This bold strategy has become a key part of the company and changed the way businesses think about financial innovations.
On October 30th, MicroStrategy announced our 21-21 plan. We had basically gone and done one convert, a second convert, a third convert, a fourth convert, and a few $1 billion of ATM issuance. So we had raised quite a bit of capital, but we were doing it piecemeal, quarter by quarter, and we decided it was time for us to be more strategic. So we announced a $21 billion equity shelf registration and a $21 billion fixed income plan over 3 years. That was the biggest equity shelf registration in the history of capital markets. So no one ever sold $21 billion of equity like that, ever, right? And that kind of flies past some people, because it's like, what I'm saying is, like, out of every company, ever.
Right.
Never done before.
The Bitcoin demand and the Bitcoin company did it.
Yeah, one Bitcoin company did it. And of course, we did it because we have the world's best use of proceeds, right? The first time in human history, you have a commodity that returns higher than the S&P with higher volatility than the S&P. So you have 60 vol, 60 ARR on Bitcoin going for many years versus 15 for the S&P. Now you had a commodity, high vol, high performance. You can put 100% of your balance sheet. Well, that means in theory, you can issue infinite equity, right? I mean, as long as you can return more than the S&P. Every other commodity, I mean, real estate, art, gold, it's 10 vol, 10 ARR, 7 vol, 7 ARR, 5. So everything other than Bitcoin was always less than the cost of capital. MicroStrategy, we kind of discovered a crypto reactor that could be fueled by Bitcoin, and we put a crypto reactor in the middle of our company. It's kind of like turning on a nuclear reactor or putting an internal combustion engine in a horseless carriage. And that's what we learned in 2024. And we came in October 30th and we said, this is what we're going to do. And that was very well received by the capital markets. That was a big success.
Yeah.
And the day after we did that, our stock outperformed every Magnificent Seven company, and our stock outperformed every Bitcoin company and outperformed Bitcoin. And that was a very important signal to the market, which is the capital market's going to line up behind an operating company to pursue a Bitcoin treasury strategy.
November 5 was the historic day of Bitcoin. The political landscape shifted, turning challenges into opportunities. Saylor explained how Bitcoin skyrocketed from 68,000 to over 100,000, driven by newfound market confidence. It was an exciting time for investors everywhere.
So we were ready to go. The market kind of started to take off, and then we get to November 5th. And at 8 p.m. on November 5th, Bitcoin is high 60s, and nobody knows whether it's going to be a blue sweep or a red sweep or a red and white and blue or a split. And really the timeline is, if you get a blue wave, Bitcoin's going to grind up 20 to 40% a year against resistance. The rest of the digital assets industry is going to trade sideways under onslaught, gradually, and who knows? Hoping, just fighting on.
Could be bad, yeah.
Yeah, it could be bad. But with a red wave, and by 8 a.m. the next morning, we knew there was a red sweep of Congress, the Senate, the House, and the White House. At that point, Bitcoin is going to surge up 40, 60, 80%. The digital assets industry has a new lease on life. Now you're going to get a digital assets framework. You're going to get an end to the war on crypto. We don't know what it means, but we know that the alternative was fight on a guerrilla war that's very painful, a war of attrition.
Yeah.
And now what you've got is a favorable tax regime, a favorable, a low regulation regime, a pro-crypto regime, a pro-Bitcoin, regime, and also the dominoes start to fall. Bitcoin surges up, and it goes from 69 to today we're plus 100. So I don't have to say the implication of that to everybody, right?
MicroStrategy did not stop there. They raised the impressive $13.5 billion in just 4 weeks and bought nearly 150,000 Bitcoins. This was the biggest purchase ever, and it proved just how much momentum Bitcoin has gained. Want to stay on top of the Bitcoin trend like this? Make sure you hit the subscribe button for more updates.
We took 30 years to accumulate $500 million in capital, which we invested by October of 2020. We took 4 years grinding away through the crypto winter to find another $10 billion of capital to invest in Bitcoin. And then the next 4 weeks of November, we raised $13.5 billion of capital. So, and in November, we bought nearly like 150,000 Bitcoin.
It was your biggest slug of Bitcoin ever added.
There were 15,000 Bitcoin mined in the month of November.
Right. About
And
10
so
times that.
when you start to work through the math of what's going on here, you can see the political landscape changed. The headwinds became tailwinds. The capital markets aligned. They're aligning behind the ETF providers. I mean, BlackRock has had record flows.
Incredible, yeah.
Right? And MicroStrategy has record flows. Our option interest surged to like $100 billion.
Right.
And our liquidity surged to the point where we're the number 3 stock after Nvidia and after Tesla.
Even global leader taking notice. Jerome Powell was quoted saying, "The consensus is building. This is a global monetary asset. If it's not going to zero, it's going to a million." This shows that Bitcoin is no longer just for tech enthusiasts. It's being recognized as a major player in the financial world.
And so the capital markets discovered and supported Bitcoin, the political system did, and now we're starting to see the dominoes fall. I mean, the favorable comments by Jerome Powell, not a surprise.
Right. He's a smart guy. I mean,
and everybody else, you can see at this point the consensus is building. This is a global monetary asset. It is worthy of attention. If it's not going to zero, it's going to a million.
Yep.
Finally, let's look at MicroStrategy's zero coupon bond strategy. Well, that was a mouthful. They initially aimed for 1.75 billion, but ended up raising 3 billion. This move broke records and cemented their confidence in Bitcoin's bright future.
Zero coupon, up 55 points, and we started looking to raise 1.75 billion, which is twice as big as our previous largest convert. We started twice as big, and it became $3 billion by the time we finished.
And you've already raised 13 out of the 42. That's 30% over 3 years, though. Aren't you ahead of schedule? Like, or what is your pacing going to look like, you think?
Yeah, we are ahead of schedule, but there are a lot of unknowns on October 30th. We weren't sure how enthusiastically the capital markets would embrace us. You've got the convertible investors. You've also got the equity investors. You've also got the options traders. So we have many constituencies. So we had to see how they would react, and that was a big thumbs up from all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then we didn't really know the outcome of the election, and I really do think the red sweep on November 5th is probably the single most important thing that's happened, maybe to the entire crypto economy in the history of the economy.